To open the Board of Selectmen's meeting for May 9th, 2022. And I get a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session to discuss two items. First, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss with respect to collective bargaining for all town unions, and if the chair has determined that open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. And second, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
Second, redundantly.
Moved and seconded, and only note is we will return to open session no later than 6:30 p.m. Roll call vote, Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, May 9th, 2022 back to order. We started tonight's meeting in executive session where we discussed collective bargaining for all town unions as well as negotiations for non-union personnel. No decisions were made. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment and announcement?
Good evening, Katie O'Neill, Health Director. Two quick items this evening. The first, in your packet, you'll see we're doing some of the rabies baiting next week. So the health department will be driving around town very slowly, throwing rabies vaccines out the window. So if you see that happening, don't panic, it's planned. A helicopter also will be dropping across Cape. If the weather's good, they'll start on Monday. If it's not good, they'll wait. There's two different types of little vaccines. One looks like a dirty ketchup packet, basically, and the other one looks like a little brick. So if you see them, leave it alone. It won't impact your pets if they eat one. If they eat a lot of them, they might get a little tummy upset because it's coated in fish oil. So it won't hurt them. Try to keep them away just because it's one less vaccine for the wild animals. But if you see a very low helicopter, don't panic. The other item that I'd like to announce this evening is we were just donated a lot of COVID take-home tests from Outer Cape Health today. So we'll be doing a pickup on Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at 204 Sisson Road. So we'll try to get that out on some of the social media accounts. Just happened this afternoon, so it was a quick turnaround planning. But again, that'll be 10 a.m. to 12 noon this Wednesday at 204 Sisson Road. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Chairman McCaskill, members of the board and administration, congrats on a
Could you just state your name for the record?
Lou Urbano,
Thank you.
West Harwich.
Perfect.
Should I start all over?
Go ahead.
Okay, members of the board and administration, congrats on a successful town meeting. And if it proved anything, it was that a group of seniors were able to stay up beyond midnight. And I congratulate you and the moderator on accomplishing that. On a serious matter, it appears that free cash is becoming an ongoing component of our budget. And we could easily start relying on it. I would hope that in the coming year, the administration, the board, FinCom would take a deep dive, similar to what a forensic accountant might do, and look at and examine the source of the free cash. And of course, give us an answer beyond it's just more revenue than expected expenses. And also how best to spend that cash on a long-term basis. I bring this to the governing body as town debt and post-employment benefits, OPEB, are a concern to me, and also, based on town meeting, a source of questions for residents. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Anyone else? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Cindy Williams, Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber. I just wanted everyone to know that as of today, we are now selling the treasure chest stickers. And I don't mean to laugh, but I sold 56 already today. It was crazy. So those are available, as well as beach stickers for residents and non. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good evening, Richard Waystack here as Chair of the Harwich Board of Assessors. Congratulations on town meeting. Watching you from Washington, you all looked and you spoke marvelously. So. Quick update, assessing parcel location and identification report. I think you might have received a memo either Friday or today from the assessing department. With kudos to the Real Estate and Open Space Committee, the report that they gave you. The assessing department, currently with 1.5 FTEs, in the last couple of weeks have assigned 25 parcels to the tune of over $1 million in valuation that had not been there. And there are a lot of reasons behind that, but they are working diligently. And the efforts at town meeting to identify funds to further complete this project will be successful. So I want you to know that your assessing department, under Mr. Powers, is working diligently on this behalf. They're doing it limited staff. They're down 2 people. And I'm hoping that some of that money can be earmarked, even if it's a temporary employee, to focus specifically on doing this title work that will bring more and more parcels onto the tax rolls.
Thank you, Richard. The board has not seen that yet. I got the detail late this afternoon on that email. They'll have it tomorrow.
That was from our meeting tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else for public comment announcement? All right, going into public hearings. Mary, would you read the first hearing notice?
Town of Harwich Board of Selectmen, notice of public hearing, Harbor Management Plan. The Harwich Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on May 9th, 2022, no earlier than 6:30 PM in the Don B. Griffin Room located at Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of reviewing proposed amendments to the Harbor Management Plan, Section 8.2, Class D permit, passenger boat. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend. Remote participation is also offered. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information. Signed by Michael D. McCaskill, Chairman, Julie E. Kavanaugh, Larry G. Ballantyne, Mary E. Anderson, Donald F. Howell, the Harwich Board of Selectmen, and it was published in the Cape Cod Chronicle, April 21st and 28th, 2022.
Thank you. Public hearing's open. John, do you want to give a brief explanation? Thank you for the in-depth packet. I don't believe there'll be a lot of questions, but brief explanation would be great.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, John Rendon, Harbor Master. So here tonight is Lynn and Deborah Greiner, who, as you saw in my memo, have been on the wait list since 1999 for this D permit. Long time. And this permit was vacated by Mr. Casurgis, who had the Yankee 2, which was a 60-passenger boat that went out and did 2 trips a day, did fishing trips throughout the harbor. So Len's put together a proposal that he'll brief you on tonight. Per the Harbor Management Plan, issuance of a Class D permit, it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, and the number of passengers that are allowed to be carried is also up to you as the board. Things to consider are parking, number of people, you know, what the demand is on the facility itself. From my perspective, as I said in the memo, Len is looking to carry 49 passengers, I believe.
Yes.
And, you know, so that's a reduction from what we had allowed previously with Yankee, which was 60 passengers. So from my perspective, that's a good thing as far as the impact on the facility. So I'm in support of it. Len Greiner has been a long time permit holder within Saquatucket, within Harwich. He runs a great charter six-pack fishing business out of Saquatucket. He has for many years, and he will continue to do that. So per the Harbor Management Plan, you can have 2 permits. only. And so this will be his second permit that he'll operate, this D permit if approved. So he's accomplished mariner, and I'll let him tell you his business plan.
Thank you. Len?
Good evening. My name's Len Greiner. We've been Harwich residents since our first house in '92. I went to Mass Maritime. I went to sea for 23 years. My better half is sitting right here, and we've raised our 5 children here. And she did it mostly by herself because for 23 years I was gone about 200 days a year at sea. I started fishing in Harwich in '88 while I was still going to Mass Maritime. And I love Harwich. I've been running captain out of Saquatucket on a charter boat since 1990. I was an officer in the Navy Reserve for 8 years. I'm a Gulf War vet. I made it from ordinary seaman cadet to captain on a petroleum carrier. And I've been on the waiting list for this permit for a long time. It kind of blindsided me because I was number 2 on the list. I really did not think that the number 1 person on the list was going to pass, so I was surprised. And in a short period of time, I had to come up with a plan. I have sent a deposit, a substantial deposit, to a boat builder in Florida. I'm building a vessel that will be delivered hopefully in May of '23. I'm building it under John Rendone's specs, basically on size, beam, passenger capacity. We met several times before I flew down and met the boat builder. We went before the board of the Waterways Committee, and they gave us a unanimous vote of yes. Like John had said, it's basically going to be a pontoon, not a pontoon, but a catamaran style hull. And it's going to look somewhat like a tiki hut, but it is going to be for short, basically like a harbor tour with music and some food and beverage, an hour-and-a-half trip. Right now we're planning on running 3 trips a day, which the first one wouldn't depart until like maybe 3 p.m., another one around dinner time, and then one at sunset. We have to rent space from the town for a ticketing facility. I've paid all the fees for this upcoming season in advance of being issued the permit. Everybody that we've talked to, we even went before the, I don't know exactly what the board is called, but it's where you go, where the fire inspector's there, the building inspector, the community development. We went before them, and they were taken aback because normally people come in and it's like they've got to get the information right away because people are trying to start for this coming year. And I was like, no, we're a year and a half off. I just don't know anything about the food industry. Debbie knows quite a bit more about it than I do. She makes homemade cranberry jelly. We have a certified kitchen, so she knows the Board of Health people. So everybody has had a really positive response to this idea. I think it's going to be a great draw to the harbor. I think that my plan is to promote the local businesses. You know, people are only going to spend an hour and a half with me, but I'm going to tell them about the charter boats. I'm going to tell them about the scallop boats and the artisan shacks and obviously bracks, as well as the, you know, I'm just going to give anything I see, I'll tell them about it. And they'll spend an hour and a half with us, and hopefully they'll come back to Harwich again. I don't see why they wouldn't. It's one of the best places on the earth that I can think of. I mean, I love it here. So I'm hoping that you guys will approve my permit, and I'm going to do a good job. Safe, fun, music, happy faces, you know, that kind of stuff, promote Harwich.
Great.
So thank you.
Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Anyone in the public wish to comment? Anyone online wish to comment? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second to close the public hearing. Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Questions from the board, starting with Don.
I really don't have any questions. I mean, it's funny listening to him. I mean, remember vacationing here in the late 70s and the 80s and going on the Golden Eagle when Paul Donovan was just the first mate. And the Yankee was there. I mean, it just seems to me that somebody has toughed it out this long and we just spent $1 bazillion on upgrading the harbor, that we want something like this as another drawer. So it sounds to me like it would be in the right hands.
Thank you.
Mary?
I agree. I read the literature you provided, and it sounds like a great addition to Harwich. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Julie?
I agree. I really look forward to you getting up and running. I'm sorry it's going to be another year, but as somebody who does permitting, I'm very impressed that you're that far out in advance. Good for you.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm really looking forward to it.
Larry?
I agree. It's a great plan.
Thank
It's a
you.
funny looking boat, but we'll, different than the Yankee.
Yeah.
But it's, it really broadens the, what's available in Harwich, having this party boat. You know, I'm hoping fishing doesn't entirely go away, but this is another great avenue for people to, tourists to come visit us. So thank you for putting this forward.
Thank you.
I happen to have known Lenny and Dick for some time, and both of them are very qualified business people, and I have no doubt that it'll be an excellent draw. So with that, can I get a positive motion?
I move that we vote to what?
Move to approve
To
the
approve
change.
the change in the harbor management plan, section 8-2, Class D permit, passenger boat.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, this may be one of the few times, since you're on the sound, that we won't have to worry about noise.
Well, keep it down.
Please. Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you very much.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second public hearing.
Sure. Notice of public hearing, Town of Harwich Board of Selectmen, application for liquor license. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 38 of the General Laws as amended that application has been made to this board for a seasonal restaurant all alcohol liquor license for Ashwood Food Service, Inc., DBA Jake's at Cranberry Valley. Kate Lomask, manager, on the following described premises located at 183 Oak Street, Harwich, Mass. 02645. A restaurant with 55 seats, large deck, kitchen on upper floor, storage on lower floor, approximately 1,800 square feet. The Board of Selectmen will hold a hearing on the application on Monday, May 2nd, 2022, no earlier than 6:30 p.m. in the Griffin Room at the Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, at which time all interested parties are cordially invited to attend. Signed by the Board of Selectmen, the local licensing authority, and published in the Cape Cod Times, April 15th, 2022.
Thank you, Mary. Just to note, this was opened last Monday, May 2nd, but it was opened at the community center and continued until tonight. Joe?
It would just be a motion to open since you've already continued.
Okay. Mary,
Get
can we
back
get a
into
motion to open?
I move to open the hearing for Ashwood Food Services, DBA Jake's at Cranberry Valley.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll do that by roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
It was continued, you've opened from continuation.
Okay, we're all set. So this is for a liquor license at Cranberry Valley Golf Course and by Jake Rooney's. That's the Ashwood. So we have a complete packet, and I would just ask if anyone in the public wishes to comment on this. Anyone online wish to comment on this? I would take a motion to close the
I
public
move that we
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Comments, Don?
if I would be out of order, I'd like to make a motion that, based on his history of running the snack shack and running the restaurant, having no complaints, it looks like this is in good hands. So I would move that we grant the license as requested.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from the board? Roll call vote. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Consent agenda, Mary.
I move that we vote to approve the consent agenda. First, to approve the following Board of Selectmen meeting minutes: December 6th, 2021, December 13th, 2021, December 14th, 2021, September 21st, 2020, and September 28th, 2020. Additionally, vote to approve Caleb Chase requests for the following amounts: one for $867.10, another for $999.91, one for $1,000, and a second one for $1,000.
Second.
Okay, moved and second to approve the consent agenda as read. Discussion? Larry?
I hate to bring this, but, because I skimmed it and I happened to catch this on September 21st minutes. It has Harry Russell, it should be Terry Russell. Extremely minor catch, but we might as well, make the motion with that correction, and it'll be.
That was part of the motion?
That was our
Yes,
motion.
it was.
Part of the second?
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. New business, discussion, recap, and debrief of annual town meeting for 2022 and next steps. Joe, before I turn to you, I would just like to thank all of the voters that went, taxpayers that went. And as Mr. Urbano said, the second night was quite late, but some very good spirited debate. I would also like to thank our staff, Ellen and Danielle, who spent a lot of time on this warrant. The town administrator, the assistant town administrator for all their work, the board for all their work, and all of our department heads for the budget and for how much they participated in town meeting this year. I don't think it could have gone any better. Board members want to comment? Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wouldn't have dared say this that night, but I mean, the one thing that comes to mind and that people really need to understand, and it's not a power play on our part at all, but the way the law reads, especially when you're considering the petition articles, you can't demand or make or require the board to do anything. You could empower them to do it, you can suggest that they do it, you can give authority to pursue, but you can't tell. And that probably increased some of the discussion, a considerable amount of extra time, because I don't think people understood that at the end of the day, we weren't going to be bound by an instruction. That's my only comment. It's not something that has to do with we're all powerful or anything, but that's the way the legislation reads.
Thank you, Don. Mary?
I also thought it went very well, and although it took a late night, I got quite an education on hunting, and I found that fascinating. So I thought it was a great meeting. The one thing that I would like to do, and I've talked to Joe about this, and I think his moving up the timetable will lead into this, I'd like to get our warrant book as an English major. I'd like some more verbiage in there that explains some of this. For example, there was confusion about CPC funding and how it could be used. So maybe we have a paragraph, I don't know where, because I'm not a lawyer, but somewhere in there before we get to the CPC articles, a paragraph that describes how the funding's created and what it can and cannot be used for. So I'm willing to help Joe work with that.
Thank you, Mary. Julie?
I think that's a great comment, Mary, because I think that would have helped people to understand the buckets and how the monies could be spent. I also think somebody in the public brought up the fact that we didn't have a map on the actual land, that would be helpful too. And anytime we can bump up I know we talked about this before when I was on the board, about getting a timeline, and it's hard because you're also functioning in other capacities while you're trying to prepare for town meeting. But any which way we could get ahead of it better, I think is better for all of us, including the public. But I thought it was great. The only thing I ever wish on town meeting is that more people would show up. But I thought it was a decent crowd, and people certainly lasted. So that's it.
Larry?
I'm reminded how, in our day and age, how passionate people are. We had very passionate discussions, went very, very long. I guess those are great comments. The thing I missed this year was the screen for visually and for hearing impaired. And I'm not sure where that went to, but I think that's a requirement that we have that around for those people who need it. And so I would ask that that be brought up for next year again.
Thank you, Larry. Joe?
That's referred to as the cart reporting.
Right.
We had it on a list. We weren't able to connect with the vendor to do that. So that's one of the things we're hoping to resume next year, or in place of that, have something suitable, because we want it to be as accessible as possible. So we weren't able to get a vendor this year, but we're hopeful for the next town meeting.
Okay. And we have lead time to do that, so.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It was interesting for me for the first time in 35 years watching town meeting and seeing it from a different perspective rather than being in the room. And I know a memory popped up last week of pre-town meetings that have been done in the past. That's a training program. I noticed a lot of people who were newer to town meeting this year. As Select Person Anderson said, explanations of things. I think it's a great opportunity for us, either through my friends at the Chamber of Commerce or somewhere else in town, League of Women Voters, to have a training for people who are coming to town meeting for the first time, explaining the process and the protocol, explaining things like CPA that people may not know anything about. And I think a lot of the discussions, while passionate, some went on because people just were not aware of the process. So I'd make that suggestion, and I'm sure our friends at the Chamber would like to assist that next year. And we have some good people. We've got people sitting here on the board who have been to town meeting for years. We have people in the community who have been to town meeting for years. That could be a great asset to other of our residents and taxpayers who maybe have not been to town meeting before. Might shorten that up just a bit.
Thank you. And I would just say to Julie's comment about participation, it didn't go lost on me that as I drove to the community center, there was Little League events going on, lacrosse events going on. As I walked into the community center, there was fitness programs going on inside the community center. And I really think we need to do a better effort in reaching out to the school and others and try and set a time that parents aren't struggling to get their kids from one event to another event, and encourage people to participate in town meeting. And I'm not sure that Monday and Tuesday night is the right time. I'm not sure that an all-day event on a Saturday would be better. You look at the time, and it was, the other comment Mr. Urbano made was seniors staying up until 12:45. Not a lot of them did. A lot of them left. And that's a tall ask for people to be up that late at night. Even when no new business after 10:40 on the first night. It's a pretty late night. We're starting at 7, so I'd like the board to explore other times. I've been asked many times for Saturday town meetings or Sunday town meetings, but I think we need to make an effort to get more people involved.
Martha Donovan, East Harwich. I'm a member of the Capital Appropriations Committee. I would love to see sort of a debt schedule in the somewhere in the warrant next year. Something that says this is what's outstanding, this is the maturity, the interest rate, and then maybe something that would include what's in the pipeline, so we all know what we're voting for, and then anything in the future, like with the capital outlay, with the capital plan, what would require to issue debt. You know, just so people have a better look at what the debt picture of the town is.
Great. Thank you. Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. First, I want to just emphasize that a lot of the comments that were just made are excellent. And when we get to item B, we might want to restate them, because that is the outlook going forward. No, everyone was appropriate, but what I wanted to do under item A is, as you started out, Mr. Chairman, is first thank everybody. And the thank yous start and end with the voters. I think the board knows where I stand on my beliefs of town meeting. I am an unabashed lover of town meeting, the New England town meeting and certainly the Massachusetts town meeting. I subscribe to that mindset that there is no greater form of democracy than a town meeting, and no greater example of that than the annual town meeting, when our budgets and our laws and our regulations are passed and debated. And so, as you've said, Mr. Chairman, and just echo that quickly, thank you to the voters. We had a small percentage show up overall, but a percentage that has been consistent in years past, which I think is a good statement, because we've returned to our natural home of town meeting, if you will, after 2.5 difficult years. And so the crowd that I saw Monday and Tuesday, I was heartened by, and I was heartened by the level of discussion, and I agree with what Selectman Valentine said in that regard. I think as we debrief on that town meeting, I don't think anyone can say with any clarity of fact that we didn't debate the items. As I knew a moderator many years ago in another town, he used to say, "We have plowed that ground and we have plowed it well." And I think we plowed ground well last week, and that's what should happen. And so in a moment, I'm gonna talk to you folks about the beginning of the calendar and the next steps, but I would be remiss if I didn't thank my team, which first and foremost is the Assistant Town Administrator, the Executive Assistants with Ellen and Danielle, and the rest of my team, which are the department heads. And we work day in and day out, year-round, as you'll notice from the next topic. And I really felt that however the votes went last week, it was, in my opinion, a very successful town meeting. And then when you look at the votes, I think it was a very successful town meeting for the Board of Selectmen, for administration, and for our departments, because by and large, we were affirmed. Excellent discussion, excellent takeaways and things we can do better. But in the end, I looked at a town meeting that affirmed and ratified the work we've been doing. And that's incredibly gratifying. And so it's great to say that, because we are now less than 356 days away. But that's item B, and I'll yield on that point, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Joe, do you want to just touch briefly on an action plan for this town meeting before we talk about next?
So-
Things that we need to do and how the board can look at those and get some sort of checklist on, so that we can keep track.
Sure.
Procurement, 204 Sisson Road, to work with capital outlay and finance committee to get some of the answers that some of the folks are looking for.
Absolutely, and that effort began last week. Actually, Wednesday, meaning Megan had the foresight to set up our sub-department head meetings. So we met with the 3 different groups, which are smaller groups of department heads. We talked about town meeting votes the night before, and we have our monthly department head meeting tomorrow, and that's exactly the topics I'm getting into, is, okay, now that we've had these articles passed, what's next? So we're working on all the appropriate procurements. We're making sure all the personnel-related items are adjudicated, and we've got directive on what should be done to close out this fiscal year as we begin the next fiscal year on July 1st. So we're already doing that, and we'll certainly have administration update the board on the latest round of procurements. We continue to progress through years past, and we just seamlessly introduce this new round into the process. But we've already begun that, and without getting too far into detail, I'll be having my second consecutive meeting in as many weeks with appropriate staff on 204 Sisson Road, and then there are other related items that we're already starting to work on. So the work has already begun, and we'll certainly start reporting out to the board on those items.
And we have 2 in the crowd tonight from capital outlay. You will reach out to capital outlay and finance committee to get the process started for the board.
Correct, and that's segue into item B as well.
Okay. Thank you. Questions or comments from the board on that? Don?
Not until the next item.
Mary?
No.
Mary?
No.
Julie?
No.
The floor is yours, Joe.
Thank you. So item B, which is our next steps, and again, I appreciate the comments that have already been made regarding the warrant, cart reporting, and other procedures. I will just say that I think we do need to recognize the great work that is being done and I know will continue into the next year by the Voter Information Committee, which hosted several tutorials, if you will. I know that I participated in 2 of them, and I think to other questions about new folks coming in, and as we progress away from pandemic into what is probably going to be endemic and just dealing with health issues generally, we can look to probably resume the Know Your Town government series, which is part and parcel of what Mr. Waystack was talking about. So my purpose in bringing some key dates and the first iteration of many iterations of the calendar for fiscal year 2024 annual town meeting next year, 2023, we're going to incorporate the commentary about the warrant. The warrant, as you know, is the board's document. And so when you talk about knowledge pieces, Mary, we can incorporate that anywhere within the boundaries of the book. We usually do sort of the education pieces up front. We can, do it before or after the articles, but we can also expand upon the information we provide with the articles. And that can also go to debt statements and things of that nature. So for me and to the board, it's hot off the presses. I was working on this late this afternoon, and I'll make sure that we have it in the record of the meeting. But if you look at key dates for planning 2023, what I wanted to draw your attention to, first at the bottom is that ticker. I started on Wednesday. Wednesday of last week was day 363, I believe, before town meeting. So really, the main things that I would just highlight tonight as we begin this process is key dates beyond Monday, May 1st, 2023. First, you drop to the bottom. Publication of the warrant. And so this is something that Danielle and Ellen in my office can speak very eloquently to. And it's one of the items that I want to talk to the Bylaw Charter Review Committee. But if you look at that, the required date based on our charter is 14 days before town meeting. But it's 14 days and published in the newspaper. So if you look at that publication of the warrant, the bottom line there, we really have a target date of April 13th to meet the publication requirements of the Cape Cod Chronicle and the way that they cycle out to get it to the voters 2 weeks in advance. And so really, there's some humor in me keeping that ticker, but there's also a reality in that. We're looking at town meeting in 356 days because it's after 6 o'clock. It's already updated. But really what you're looking at there is we're a month past the 1-year date for publishing the notification. So we only have 11 months left. And by that I mean to say it goes quickly. So from that publication date, if you then look, the key deliverables right now that I want to highlight are going back to the top, presentation of our current financial assessment. Now, the charter requires me to present that to the board. The charter says on or before October 1st. So we know that this year, October 1st falls on a Saturday. We know that it's typically presented to you at a meeting. So the latest that I would present the current financial assessment to you is Monday, September 26, 2022. And so from that, you would then perhaps use that information and that knowledge no later than Tuesday, October 4th. And really what it would be is you'd be your meeting on October 3rd to establish the policy on the budget development. And of course, these are critical steps and also required steps within our charter, as you can see in the governance column on the right. And then last but no means least, and I appreciate the chair and a member of the Capital Outlay Committee being here, because the charter calls for during the month of December, there is a joint meeting between the Capital Outlay Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee. And so in this draft calendar, I'm shooting for Monday, December 12th, and that's only because we've already started backing out some other dates. So what I would want the board to take away from this discussion this evening is that we've already begun, and I've already told department heads last week, but I'll emphasize it tomorrow. I will be starting next week by reaching out to department heads individually and trying to get out of the office and get out into the world of our town government and see them in operation, talk about the current town meeting and those items that are that we have to, that's my time, that we have to incorporate before the new fiscal year starts, but I'm already going to start having conversations about what do you see being critical factors for your operating budget? What do you see being added to the capital outlay plan in '28, but also potential amendments to the current 4 years that will be there, '24 to '27? And what are you contemplating for community preservation? And so community preservation, we know their calendar is October 1st is preliminary applications. There's a secondary date sometime in December. And so as you know, we've talked in years past, my goal is to make sure that this board is aware of prospective CPC applications late August, early September, so that anything that's coming from the town, the board's already aware of. You can bless, if you will, the application, so that when it goes in the preliminary phase to CPC, administration's already been working with the departments for several months. The board's aware of it for at least a month before they're filed. And so that level of information is going to have a cascading effect as we build the warrant going forward. We can contemplate those items in the warrant, take out the ones that don't get approved, but start building the warrant much earlier so we can start building it more thoroughly. Again, for tonight, these are just four, they're major milestones as required by the charter. No greater milestone than town meeting will happen on May 1st. And then no other, the second one that's the biggest is publication. Everything else we can work around it, but everything else is driven by those two dates. So I will continue to frame out that calendar on other items that are governed either by bylaw or charter, and then other items that has been practiced in the past. But the overall message I'm trying to convey to everybody is fiscal year '23 is in the rearview mirror, even though it hasn't started from a planning standpoint. We're on to '24.
Thank you. Don, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to what the chair had said earlier, I totally agree, because I've seen several Saturdays in my lifetime that it happened, and even during a pandemic, we had better attendance outside on a Saturday than we did on the second night, for instance, in this meeting, and you can get it done all in one day. And I'm looking at the process right here in the charter, 2.3-1. It has to be changed, but the point is that it's going to take 2 years whenever we start. So if we wait until next year, it'll be 2 years plus the year we just lost. At some point or another, we should probably start the process and see where we get. I'm not even a big fan of being so prescriptive that it could be this day and only this day. I mean, I'm more of a mind that the first 2 weeks of May, or you could pick a weekend day or any day within that. But this prescribes the first Monday in May. And there is no way around that. And ironically, we had to violate that during the pandemic because we couldn't meet that. So I feel like governance documents need to be broad enough to be able to give you some latitude to be able to, work around them depending on the circumstances that year. And something that would allow us to do any day in the first 2 weeks of May would do that, including a Saturday.
Joe?
I did speak with the moderator. We, and our joint efforts in planning ahead of last week, talked about the charter requirement of the first Monday in May, but also about the fact that the board actually sets the time of town meeting. There is no directive on that. And so, not to speak for the moderator, but I do want to tell you that he has certain ideas about that, and he would welcome an earlier start time if the board was so agreeable. So the charter is absolutely ironclad on first Monday in May, barring a governor's edict during a pandemic. But the time to start is set by the board. And so we may want to consider even a half hour earlier, because that can make a big difference.
Thank you. Don, anything further?
No, I was remiss, though, in not saying that everybody did a great job, including the folks on this board and the chair. I mean, it really went well. There were so many things that could have gone south in terms of contention that it's New England governments, and it's really good to see.
Mary?
I'm just curious, Joe, this chart that you gave us with the dates that you just talked us through, that sounds like those are the existing prescribed dates. I thought we were looking to bump everything up, back, if publication of the warrant under the current rules is April 13th, I thought we were looking to back that up by a couple of weeks or a month.
We certainly are. Some of the things that, yes, and including the date that I put in there about the financial assessment.
Yeah.
Now, if I think that we have a strong sense of our financial assessment in early September, I would do it then, and then if the board felt that you could get a policy directive on the budget out sooner, we would do that as well. But I think to Selectman Howell's points about the charter, some of the things we're bumping up against is we have to publish the charter by that April 13th date because the charter requires us to publish in the Chronicle. And so that publication, that target date, is actually 2 weeks earlier. Now, the problem with that is when you talk about it that way, 2 weeks earlier is April 3rd. The charter mandates that by March 31st, the Finance Committee must get recommendations to the board. Now, I believe my rudimentary interpretation of the charter is meant to get to, they have to give recommendations to you. There's a further recommendation or further directive in that same section of the charter that says that they must get their recommendations to the general public 10 days before town meeting. There's no way to do that other than in the warrant publication in the newspaper. So there's sort of that dangling date, if you will. But that's one of the things that, concurrent with the effort of planning, is I've already talked about having meetings sooner rather than later with capital outlay. I'm going to be reaching out to the chair of the Bylaw Charter Review Committee to start that process as well, because the charter has inconsistencies and incongruities that sort of jam things up. So the FinCom would be well within their charter rights to hold off on their recommendations until March 31st. If they were to do that, it gives us one business day to really turn that around to meet the publication date. So we're trying to start things earlier because of those impediments, but there are some impediments that we can't get around because they're in the charter.
I would just say there's not one FinCom member that I've met that wants to hold the process up any more than it already is. I mean, they're incredibly frustrated with how little time they have based on the dates that are in the charter. They're very frustrated with how little time they have to do their work. Joe?
So then, to that point, and I understand and agree with the frustration. So the charter the bylaw has a deadline for citizen petitioned articles, which on this calendar would be February 10th at noontime. So that doesn't really work for me to get it to the board the following Monday because it's after your agenda. So what we've been doing is putting a placeholder on there. But we can use the charter requirement of the board transmitting to the Finance Committee all the articles 2 weeks later. So that would be February 26th. The charter requires you folks to get the articles to Finance Committee. I'm building the draft calendar with the understanding that that would be our end date, if you will. Meaning to try to get to the point where the board can say, you're not contemplating any other articles. These are all the articles that you've been made aware of by petition, that you've been made aware of by the administrator and staff, and that you yourselves have been contemplating, so that you can, not in the legal sense, you can close the process, not close the warrant because you still have to keep it open, but we could use the February 26th date as the absolute end, and then FinCom could rely upon that for their hearing process. We can revisit the issue of the 1 day, that omnibus meeting we used to have, and try to get that done in the middle of March.
Thank you, Joe. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Just to add to that, there's prescriptive language. There's prescriptive language. I mean, the one that talks about the first Monday, there's no wiggle room at all there. But I kind of feel like my old college days. Just because somebody told me to come in with a paper no later than April 15th didn't mean I had to wait until April 14th to start writing it. This is a no later than situation for most of these dates. If we choose to pull things back so that we've got more ability to have a sane process, that's us. We can do that.
And I don't think we have a choice based on how the last few years have gone. Julie?
Yeah, I know you're building this as you go, but one thing I would say too, that we had some difficulty with our meeting in March where we were looking at the department head budgets, right? Was that we couldn't really collectively, so then we ended up doing a couple meetings. I think the sooner we can get ahead of that and find out dates that were all available so we could do the 1 day, I think the one day is great, even though it's a little painful. It's a better way to do it.
We could simply add a date to the calendar
Right.
now.
Not tonight, because you didn't notice it, but yes, please.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later. and
Just so we all
that would be
commit to
wonderful.
it,
Oh,
So-
yeah.
you know.
So I guess my point, Joe, would be the entire calendar of dates is what this board needs to tackle.
Yep.
Because there is a lot of work that has to be done in a short time, which, again, Finance Committee this year was extremely frustrated, again, because they didn't have enough time to do this, and then they struggle, they get it done. But that's not a benefit to the residents, because they're waiting to get it.
Right.
I guess, Joe, on the warrant, we're building the warrant throughout the year, really.
Correct.
Not the CPC articles, I get that they're time date petition articles, but we are creating articles. What is to stop us from, when we finally vote an article, or to put an article before, which I envision a lot of charter changes
Right.
this year. Building it, voting it, and putting a placeholder in it, so that we can not do all of the articles in a week.
So the short answer is there's nothing you preventing from doing that. In anticipation of that, and I'm going to look over my left shoulder, Ms. Powell and I have already met, and we're already building the warrant for 2023. Because we know that, there's about, say, 10 to 12 boilerplate, meaning every year we have them. I'm generally aware of some other articles that we may want to consider. So we're already beginning the framework. As we talk more about additional items to add for education pieces, we can put that in as well. So it's a dynamic process, and we're building it year-round throughout the year.
Thank you. Larry?
Thank you. Good discussion. I think our discussion's been pointed towards your schedule, rightly, because that's on the agenda and where we're going forward. My ask is for, Joe, if you would take a critical look at us as Board of Selectmen, what could we be doing better on having these discussions and moving it forward? Because we had to do this every year, and it's been a good discussion, but we've been, mainly discussions kind of been pointing outward. I'd like to get your ideas on what we could do ourselves and critical look at that.
Would it dishearten you if I had an immediate response to that? I appreciate what Member Kavanaugh said. Something like that would go a long way. The five of you know that, there's that joint hearing, at least one according to the charter, with the Finance Committee. And so if you folks could start collecting dates or even work through staff, and then we can work with Finance Committee, because then it'll help me get it to the capital outlay, and it's all tied together. So the sooner you folks look at your calendar for that key date, that would be helpful. And then I will continue to look at ways to criticize the board.
I think you could pick a date that fits into the calendar now and add it to the calendar.
So we have a
The problem
date-
is, it's not in the calendar.
So we have a date in mind that we can share with you folks in FinCom, see if that works. And of course, we always factor in a weather date as well.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This isn't going, I don't want it to come off as trite, but once we have hit the ground in actual practice with the capital plan being what it describes in the charter, let's assume that it passes, that you're not looking at either 5 or 7 whole years of allocating different things from zero on, because you've got a mechanism. You're doing the tail year, and anything that's an emergency goes in front of town meeting, and it's happened before. This charter got changed a couple of times. People in this town always support a cogent reason for saying, we can't wait until year 7 or year 5 because there's a water tower that's leaking and we got to do something this year about it. The 2/3 vote is not going to really be a problem in practice. It may sound daunting, but the rest of it actually helps you because you're not looking at recreating the entire world every year.
I'm not going there tonight, but we are gonna talk about the capital plan, because there seems to, even on town meeting floor, there seems to be confusion about the capital plan as it is now. So I think that for education for everybody, and to answer questions, whether it's working, gonna work, not work, what it actually says, will be a conversation that we're gonna have in the very near future, in case we need to contemplate changes again at the next town meeting. But I'll leave it at that, and it's not on the agenda for debate tonight, but there is certainly a lot of confusion surrounding the new process, numbers, what part of it matters, what part of it doesn't matter, that need to be clarified, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just on that, and just a reminder that on May 17th, there is a ballot question that relates to the key change. You know, we've been anticipating that passing, but it would be helpful if that passed.
Thank you, Joe. Julie, anything further?
No.
Well put.
Just,
Larry?
yeah, constructive criticism is what I was asking for. What our actions could be. You know, I do take your point on the financial plan, though, because that oftentimes stops us in our tracks for discussion. So as much as you can keep us up to date on that, including the potential debt, so we can put those judgments in part of that discussion early on, I think that goes a long way, too.
I would agree. Thank you.
Julie, anything further?
Nothing.
Mary?
All set.
Don?
Good.
Joe, anything further?
Glad it's over, 3:56.
Anyone in the public wish to say anything related to town meeting or this calendar? Hearing no one? C?
Do you want a motion?
Yes, please.
I move that we vote to designate the Assistant Town Administrator as American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, reporter relative to the Barnstable County ARPA application portal, changing from Carol Capola.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I guess the only question I have is, the Assistant Town Administrator aware of her new responsibility?
She is, since she's not able to speak for herself, I would tell you that she loved my idea. And we know that the portal is opening soon, so when we have a finance director, it would be the appropriate action to go back to that. Equally importantly, as I had a conversation with folks at the Barnstable County, and they understand why we're doing that. The preference is an administrator and a finance person, but in the short term, Megan's more than capable to balance out that team.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call. Don?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. The motion as well?
I move that we vote to accept the closure and relinquish the annual on-premise all-alcohol liquor license held by the Harwich Inn and Tavern, 77 Route 28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Don?
Hallelujah. Yeah, this is the way things should work. Somebody closes their place, they relinquish the license, they give it back, and thank you for following the process to the owner.
I agree. Larry, anything? Julie?
No.
Yeah, roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
I move that we vote to approve a special permit for one-day entertainment for the Harwich Conservation Trust Walk and Wag event to be held at 10 Headwaters Drive on May 14th, 2022, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Second.
Entertainment type, recorded or live music with amplification outside.
Still
Still
second.
second.
Still second.
Moved and seconded.
Hi, I'm Patty Smith from Harwich Port, and the Harwich Conservation Trust and the Sampson Fund for Veterinary Care are hosting this event, a dog walk called Walk and Wag, this Saturday. And we hope it'll be a fun event for everybody, all the residents in Harwich that have dogs and people in the surrounding towns. And music always makes things more fun. So we're hoping you'll grant this permit. Tim Sweeney and the Fringe, who's played at Sampson Fun events before and is very well received. We're hoping that they will be able to play.
Great. Thank you. Comments or discussion from the board? Don?
None.
Mary?
I'm fine with this.
Julie?
No, none.
Larry?
I'm tempted, but no.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Joe, do you want to open up F?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, and then if I could turn it over to Select Board Member Howell. So the Affordable Housing Trust has been actively working on any number of activities, not the least of which are the properties located adjacent to Pleasant Lake Avenue that were acquired from the Marceline family. And as you know, at the October 2021 special town meeting, and the action that was taken there to take land by eminent domain, the town was required to do an appraisal, and that there was some concern from Finance Committee. So the question now is if the town wants us to do a second appraisal, but I've already said too much because I should be relying upon the selectman liaison to the trust, Mr. Howell.
Thank you.
Member.
Don?
Member even. I don't know how to put this politely, but I'm going to say it.
Take my tact.
Okay, I'll be blunt about it. We should be careful about what we wish for. You look on Zillow for my own house over the last 6 months, and I couldn't afford to be in it. Incrementally each month, I couldn't afford to be in it even more. We've got an expert in both real estate and in the assessing. Happens to be the same guy. Are we going to get a better number, Mr. Waystack, than what we got, like, say, 4 months ago? Because I don't think so. I'm thinking that the result of this endeavor is supposed to be to contrast that to maybe lower the amount we put aside, but I'd be worried about what we're going to find out.
Mr. Waystack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appraisals are based on the comps that are out there. Comps should all be set. However, we had one last week, an appraiser from off Cape, and most of the banks who are getting appraisers basically round robin the appraisers. They don't have the same appraiser for multiple properties. And this appraiser came from off Cape, and he was unfamiliar with our community and didn't know the more valuable neighborhoods in the community. And he felt initially, looking at this particular property that was under contract, that there was no way that he could appraise it near the purchase price. When the realtors submitted comps for that neighborhood, including a house that had closed 4 months ago next door, totally changed his tune. It really is who you choose as an appraiser. If it's someone who is local to the market, who knows the particulars of Harwich, it may be better. The difficulty right now is choosing an appraiser is very difficult because they're very, very busy. And you could come in with a higher number. If you're looking for something just tentative, you've got a number of professionals in this community who can offer some advice in terms of market analysis that would assist potentially with an appraisal. And that would lead you to believe, okay, would we get a better number or not? So I think you can do something without spending money within your own community first, and that will give you a better idea of might you get a better appraisal in the future.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yes, sir.
So this piece of land, just for the public, is the Marceline property that the Housing Trust purchased, correct?
The in-between portion.
In between, right? So given that that piece of land was appraised by the last appraiser at $170,000, and where it sits in the middle of everything the town just bought, and the fact that it's in the Affordable Housing Trust, is $170,000, given the report that the town got on the owner's unknown and what a mess that was, is it worth $170,000 or no?
One man's opinion, Mr. Chairman. That's all it is.
That's what I was looking for.
It is, I think it's potentially high, and I think if you had comps of other property in town, there have been some sales that have occurred in the last 3 months, land sales in Harwich, that would help you come to that realization. To be very frank with you, I would not want to give an opinion without looking at the data, looking at the comps, and say to you, it's worth getting appraisal or it's not. And there are a number of very good professionals in the community who can do that, and I'm sure that they would do it pro bono for the town. You can then come back and say, is it worth having the second appraisal? It's going to cost you, you know what the cost is going to be for another appraisal, and if it doesn't serve your purpose, why are you spending the money?
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In addition to that, my concern is that eminent domain, you can't get an off-the-cuff opinion and see what the consensus of people are. They require a real appraisal so that the money can be set into escrow, waiting for owners unknown folks to make a claim, a fractional claim or a whole claim or whatever. So you're locked into getting a professional appraisal, not just an opinion.
You have one, but if you ask the question, is it worth it to have a second appraisal done? I would have some people look at it first to properly answer that question. Yeah, I can do a market analysis right now on my computer, but I think it's appropriate to say, have a couple of people look at it give you the data that you need to say, yes, it could be possible to have a second one done as an appraisal, which is the working document you need.
Then instead of using the word appraisal, why don't we see if we could do a successor action where we invite a market analysis to be made from amongst relevant community resources to see if it's worth going out for a real appraisal.
Thank you. Larry?
Makes sense to me.
Julie?
Yeah, I think an analysis.
I agree.
Thank you.
So we're gonna get a market analysis by consensus of the board. G,
Can I do them all together?
you sure can.
Okay. I move that we vote to approve the 2022 expanded outdoor table service applications for Zach Inc., DBA Castaways, 986 Route 28, WFS Restaurant Group Inc., DBA Red River Barbecue, previously Alouette, 787 Route 28, 554 Street Bar LLC, DBA Three Monkeys, 554 Route 28, MT Group LLC, DBA Mad Minnow Bar and Kitchen, 554 Route 28.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve as read. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Next up is discussion and possible vote on potential appointment of members to the Local Planning Committee, LPC. Just pulling this, finding this in the packet. Page 93 is a memo, from Joe Powers, Town Administrator, dated May 9th, and we, by majority, have agreed on 10. And then the 11th that we were gonna pick, there's 3 candidates that each received 2 votes. So the 3 candidates that each received 2 votes were Clara McClarty, Ed McManus, and Marletta Nielsen, I believe.
Marietta.
Marietta. Oh yeah, that was spelled wrong. So I think it's great that we were able to land on 10 out of 11 by majority. And the way this process worked is each board member picked their 11 and sent it to staff, and staff compiled what we have in front of us. So our job tonight would be to pick or try and agree on the 11th member. Comments, I'll start with Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, largely, it looks like a really good committee. It maps out in various areas. I looked at it in terms of various things. There's 4 people, at least 4 people with a planning background. There's 4 people who are fairly newcomers, like 5 years or so. I'm going to make a plea here because the major components of the plan are economic, because you need to be able to support your family working here. There needs to be legitimate work other than working in retail as a default position. There needs to be a place to live for the folks who do work here. I would like to think that we're going to preserve and have respect for our past. My plea is that, I've said this before, as each one of you has probably heard me at various times. I'm concerned that when you jump into a car to come here, and we do rely an awful lot on visitors, that you don't want to drive 5 hours to come to a place that looks like the place you just left when you started. I'm begging you to set aside at least one spot for somebody who's interested in preserving the natural assets of the community. And that is a component of the plan. Planners have a tendency to plan, and they have a tendency to want to build. One of the people that we're appointing was part of the last plan where we wound up with a pitched to change the zoning so that we could have concentric circles with a 4-story building in the middle and the 3-story buildings in the next circle. I'm actually advocating for Clara, because whatever else you might think of her, she's uber smart, she does a lot of research, and it's 1 out of 11 people, and I would really like somebody who's a staunch advocate for the environment to be part of that. So that's my pitch.
Thank you, Don. Mary?
I agree with Don. Clara was on my maybe list. I had 8 that I definitely wanted. I had like 5 or 6 maybes, and I argued back and forth with myself on Clara.
The rest of this looks
And
great.
I think, I'm with you. I think that makes sense. Not that I don't believe all of the rest of those candidates don't have interest in preserving the natural beauty. Several of them spoke to it or wrote it in their letters. But I think Clara represents a different point of view, and I think there is a place at the table.
Thank you, Mary. Julie?
So I agree. I think we've put together a really great list of people, and I would agree that pretty much everybody that we spoke with had an interest in protecting Harwich as well as seeing its future and how to expand it properly. I don't have a problem. I think Clara's quite intelligent and has a passion for protecting Harwich. But I feel a little bit differently in the sense that this group is a great group. But I also think Ed McManus is a good person to put on this because he has a breadth of knowledge from historically as well as development, as well as all the various projects that have gone on in town. And I also think he's a good rallier of the community. He has a lot of contacts. He has a lot of ways to bring people into the fold. And I think that that's going to be equally important to this committee. I think that you're going to need to have somebody who can really gather people to make them understand that their participation in this group is key to its success. So that's where I go with that.
Thank you, Julie. Larry?
Yeah, Julie makes a strong case for Ed, because we all know him. I actually did put Clara on my list. Quite frankly, I disagree with many of her positions. I think that I'm a little astounded always that there's a conflict as large as it is between so-called builders and environmentalists. I think you can have both. You can put building where more dense, where it's allowed, and create actually more open space. When I looked at the choice of the committee, though, I wanted to be sure we had a diverse set of opinions on the committee itself. I wanted to be sure people felt comfortable that we had both ends of the spectrum. And so I would endorse Clara.
Thank you. My comments are very similar to Julie's. I struggled with this appointment, but Ed, to me, it represents exactly that, somebody that can rally the community and somebody that can bring a diverse group of people to the meetings that are going to happen. So this is a committee, and the committee is going to do a lot of public outreach. So in my sense is that Ed has done a great job bringing people together in this community, and that's why I picked Ed. So we have to pick one, and I would entertain a motion to pick the last person.
I move that we appoint Clara McClarty to the last position.
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion?
No.
Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm a no. So motion carries. So we're going to add Clara McClarty to the list as the 11th.
So is it the board's intent that the 10 at the bottom are already on?
Yes.
Yes.
It might be helpful to just affirm those.
I move that we approve the original list submitted in our packet for the first 10
As presented.
as presented.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Mary, this is a motion on B.
On B,
Yes.
I move that we vote to approve and sign the deed for the sale of 5 Bell's Neck Road to John Carey.
Second.
Okay, moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
I move that,
Yep, go ahead.
excuse me, I move that we vote to execute and authorize the chair to sign a contract for dog impoundment services with the Animal Rescue League,
Second.
$7,000.
Still your second, Don?
Would have been for 9,000.
All right, moved in second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. One more contract.
Okay. I move that we vote to approve the Barnstable County dredge contracts for Allen Harbor Channel Dredge Project and Witchmere Harbor Channel Dredge Project.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion from the board. Joe Powers?
Just that if the board approves this, you would be authorizing the chair. We have two originals because this is an agreement between the county and the board. So
The
it'd be
motion
for the chairman
included
to
to
sign.
authorize the chair to sign,
Yes, it did.
and that was the second?
That was it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Permission from the chairman to speak since we have the Capital Outlay Committee and John here.
Yep.
On the Allen Harbor
Just
Jetty.
identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Kelleher, West Harwich.
Thank you, Mark.
And just a short comment on the West Harwich Jetty reconstruction project. At some point in time, I'd like to find out, maybe at the Capital Outlay and John, how much of the Allen Harbor is under private, in other words, private control, the moorings and slips by the marina, yacht club, and private slips, and I think versus the public. And I think that information would be important because there could be some cost sharing there for the jetty reconstruction project. Thank you.
So your question, Mark, just so I understand it, and John will have a takeaway. West Harwich is not related to these two dredges.
No, it's not related to the dredge project at all.
So you want to get an understanding of the cost-sharing possibilities for the West Harwich.
For the Allen Harbor jetty reconstruction project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We will follow up on that, Mark. Any further discussion on this contract approval? Roll call vote, Larry?
I do have one question for John.
Go ahead.
I think, did I see a memo, I forget from whom, on how you're handling traffic in and out of Allen Harbor when you're dredging?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The
If you
boats
could
going in and out because you're going to close part of the,
Same deal, chair.
of the Allen Harbor Channel.
Well, we're not closing the channel. The dredge is actually here, and they actually started dredging Friday. So we put out a local notice to mariners that that the
Okay.
Coast Guard, transmits every half hour. So people are supposed to be cautious,
Supposed to know.
but it's not closed.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Town administrators report?
Just some quick contracts that I was able to execute. First is a contract in the amount of $13,800, and it's for a company known as Mi'kmaq Bike Crossing Signals. And this would be for the procurement and installation of warning beacons at existing bicycle crossings at Depot Road and Oak Street, and it's for 4 poles along those routes. And then the second item originally was a sealed bid process. The expectation is that the cost was gonna come in above $50,000, which would have necessitated board action. Very pleased to announce that the sealed bids resulted in a contract under $50,000. So what this next one is for the janitorial services at the comfort stations at our beaches. You know, in years past, we were able to pay for that through CARES Act. It's no longer available. However, the bid came in lower than expected, which is great. So the vendor is going to be SJ Service Incorporated out of Danvers, and the total amount for the contract is $47,388. So great to have them do that, and great to have that savings. And I think that's attributable to the strength of the bid documents that went out in the bid process. And that's my report.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a question, going back to the signalization, is that the same company that we've been dealing with? 'Cause I'm a little concerned because I'm sure that anybody, well, 3 of us come from East Harwich. You come down Route 39, and if it's really windy, that light's always on. There are other times when I see one person walking and they all of a sudden walk out into the road and no signalization goes off. I don't see that same problem like in Dennis and some other places.
Can we report that problem to Link and look for an answer, Joe, for traffic safety?
Yeah, and it could be 2 separate items. I'm not sure if this was a successor organization. I do know that the procurement requirements asked for 3 quotations, and this was the best response to that. So we'll find out if they're a successor group, but regardless, we can still get that issue over to DPW.
Thank you,
The
Don.
2 that I'm most concerned about are the Sisson Road entering the middle of town and Great Western Road by the bogs. They're always a problem, and the reason I brought it up is because I've spoken to Link over the last 5 years, and he's had them tweaked like numerous times, and they adjusted up for the sensitivity, they adjusted down for the sensitivity. And at a certain point in time, I just want to make some certainty here, because people, when they start seeing that light on all the time, just start blowing right through it, because it's like a train crossing that you see no train.
Thank you, Don. Before I get on to Selectmen's report, Joe, I want to back up to the LCP membership and ask that we send a letter to all of those who were appointed, saying they were appointed, and when, that they'll hear back from us. With the lack of a planner right now, I imagine we have to have a conversation on next steps. But I'd like to get them a letter stating that they were in, and I would also like to send a letter to the applicants that applied, thanking them for applying, and maybe pointing out that we have several other committees in town that have needs. I know that worked on a more recent one, appointment, that they picked another committee after they weren't picked on.
Yeah, I just want to postscript this. I'm not suggesting that it was anti-anybody else, and I don't think anybody else was who voted on this. So I think you might want to hold out the prospect, because it's a long time they're going to be working together. There's a possibility that out of 11 people, somebody's going to drop out over the next year. That I think we should keep our options open and just say thanks for applying, and if in the future you might consider another position somewhere else, but in the future we would certainly like to consider you if an opening occurs in the planning committee along the way.
Joe?
I like that.
And do you prefer that to be a letter from the board or through administration?
From the board, through administration.
Follow up to that.
Everybody.
We can do anything, really.
But don't you think that we should not send anything until the letters go out notifying the people who've just been selected, because they may have changed their minds? You don't necessarily know. So we could end up having a discussion about another couple people until we hear confirmation that they do want to join.
That was kind of my point, is like, I don't want to turn anybody off.
Process to me is however we do it, but I would like to send letters thanking
Yeah.
and letting people know they've been picked.
These are just you.
Oh, thanks. Selectmen's report, Don?
Nothing from me.
Mary?
Risk of getting out before 8, nothing.
Larry?
Nothing.
Julie?
Don't forget about the COVID test pickup, Wednesday, 204 Sisson Road, 10 to noon. And the treasure chest.
Yeah, well, let me
Mine's
just,
a little
before
more-
we,
ahead.
that brings me up, Cindy mentioned the treasure chest. You know, this weekend was terrible, but the first weekend, the weather was terrible, but the first weekend, it was fantastic. People were very happy. The place looks great. I can't believe how much stuff we have there already. And I only took a few things, by the way. I got more to go.
That's
But-
not in the policy.
Get there first.
But my hat's off to the committee, to Link and Sean, other people supported them, getting that together. It looks fantastic.
Thank you, and I would just say that mine is related to the theft of political signs. But it's been heavily reported on Route 28 that political signs are being stolen. Now, I did happen to have the conversation with somebody who then witnessed a Mass DOT truck putting one of the political signs in the back of their truck. The candidate then called Mass DOT and spoke to a supervisor somewhere who got a hold of the foreman here, and the answer was, I'll put it back. So I would like to follow up with whoever we have to follow up on DOT to find out why they took that one, and if they've taken more, and where the people that paid for those signs could then recover them. I'm not stating that they took them all, but it seems to be heavily reported from Route 28 and nowhere else. And being that they did get caught putting one in the back of the truck, one could make a reasonable assumption. But the taking and moving of political signs is wrong in every sense of the words. And we need to, as a town, address that. So whomever our contact with Mass DOT, I would appreciate an answer. Because if they're in the road layout, normally what they do is put them further back, even if they put them on somebody's lawn to let them know. And I will tell you, I drove from Hyannis down 28, as far as I could drive in every other town. Ours, the people that are putting them on 28 in Harwich are no closer to the road than any other town. So I would like that conversation to happen, Joe, if you could make that happen. Motion to adjourn?
Well, wait, you should also remind people that they shouldn't put them in places that are public land, because I've been seeing a few of those, and you're not supposed to do
Orphan
that.
signs.
So reminded.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Julie. Motion to
Motion.
adjourn?
Second.
Roll call, Larry?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.